Hi, I'm Dennis Phillips, and welcome to Everyday Reloading and Shooting. All right, welcome back to the channel. Once again, we're at the Georgia Gun Club's 100-yard indoor rifle range, and today I'm shooting my Tikka T3X chambered in Remington 223, mounted in an Oryx chassis with a Vortex Diamondback 6-24x50 tactical first focal plane rifle scope. Today, I'll be comparing two different bullets. We're shooting CFE 223 powder at 23 grains charge weight on a 73 grain Hornady ELD match bullet, and also on a 73 grain Berger boat tail bullet. We'll be shooting 5 warming shots with the ELD match, and then we'll be shooting two 20-shot groups of each round. And today, Santa Claus came early, and I'm using my Garmin Zero C1 chronograph, and we'll be measuring the velocities of these shots to see how consistent we are in our loading. All right, let's get to it. As always, you're welcome to enjoy the music while I fast forward through my shooting, or you can skip forward to the results that follow, usually about a minute and a half. Shooting at 100 yards. All right, that's my first time using the Garmin Zero C1 Pro. It was a little tricky, and I think I got most of my shots recorded. Let's bring them in, take a look, see how we did. The frustrating thing about this session was on almost every shot, on like 90%, I had to do a second bolt lift, and on 2 or 3 shots, I had to do a third and fourth bolt lift in order to get it to fire. I put this out on one of the forums, and some of the people said I had excessive head spacing, and I think they're right, because I also threw away 2 cases that were on the verge of splitting. You could see the round ring around there forming, and one actually did split in the rifle, and I had to jam another round in there to get the stuck front half out of the chamber. I had to jam another round into it and then pull that back out. Took me a couple of tries to get that. All right, I first fired 5 fouling shots using the 73 grain ELD match loaded at this same charge weight. It was shooting slightly to the right, and I want it to shoot above my point of aim so that I don't destroy it. So I have this set deliberately to shoot high, and they continue to shoot very similarly as far as the average height. You look at the height of this group, the height of this group. Had a stray over here. That might be the one where the round split inside of the chamber, but we'll still include that in our analysis. Berger also had a flyer out here, so on almost every pull of the trigger there was a failure to fire. I had to lift the bolt a second time, drop it back down again in order to get it to fire. I had a similar problem last week with the shooting out of the same rifle, different round, but same rifle. And some folks said they thought I had a problem with head spacing. I think they may be correct. So I have a Hornady guy mounted in a lead bushing in my lead press, and I think that may be loose in there. And I've checked it, and I've had 2,000th head space. I've measured that, even recorded that on camera. But I think I'm going to have to check that. I think that would account for both the split cases and the one showing with the problem forming where there was a ring forming around the outside of the case. I know those are getting ready to split, so I just went ahead and tossed those. All right, here we go. We're going to take them home, measure them, and see how they compare. You see that these groups are considerably larger than what I normally shoot. You would expect a 20-shot group to spread out, of course, but on this particular day, I came to discover that I had a head spacing problem. On a lot of these shots, I would chamber around, take aim, pull the trigger, click, no boom. Lift the bolt, close the bolt, take aim, pull the trigger, boom. And that was happening the majority of the time, probably 90% of the time on these shots. And of course, when you're dealing with that, that's going to throw you off psychologically, because on the one hand, there's a temptation to rush the first shot because you know it's going to click, and then you try to take better aim on your second shot. And then on the second shot, you're just not focused because you're aggravated about having to lift the bolt a second time. So I think I was having some issues with mental focus, and I think that also threw my groups off here. Not sure how the sizing die got off. I've always loaded these with about 2,000 shoulder bump. Not sure what happened, how that got off. But anyway, I'm taking steps to correct that, so hopefully this won't be a problem in the future, except for the next video that you're going to see. So I decided to compare the Hornady 73 grain ELD match with the 73 grain Berger boat tail bullet. And here are the results of that shooting. I started off with a fouling group here, shooting right at an inch. And then I moved to the 73 grain ELD to start with. I shot 20 shots with each cartridge. We're also shooting 23 grains of CFE 223 powder, which I have found to be a good performer for this bullet. And so with the 73 grain ELD match bullet, we had an extreme spread of 2.28 inches. This is on 20 shots. We had a flyer out here, of course, and we'll look at this minus the flyer. But we had a mean radius of 0.55, which gives us an average group size of 1.10. And the area, because the spread was 2.05 inches wide and an inch and a half tall at 1.53, we had an area of 3.14 inches. So we were shooting about 2/3 of an inch high at 0.66, and we were right on target horizontally with 0.05 inches to the left. Now, we had a flyer here. This is 20 shots, and anytime you shoot more shots, you can expect those groups to open up. And these did. And we had at least one flyer here. There was a fairly good spread here. But if you were to take this one flyer out of the equation, then you have an extreme spread of 1.98, a mean radius of 0.51, and an average group size of 1.02 inches, and an area of 2.2 inches. Not really where I want to be with this round. I think we need to do some seating depth testing on this, but I think we can refine that load because it has performed well in other situations. Going to the 73 grain Berger boat tail, we had an extreme spread of 2.6 inches, so a bit wider versus 2.28, a mean radius of 0.6. which gives you an average group size of 1.2 inches and an area of 3.28 inches. So worse in all respects. Again, this one also had a flyer, so if you take that one shot out of the mix, then you're measuring 19 out of 20, and there was actually a second flyer here, which gives you a pretty nice cluster here, but on the other hand, we have a pretty nice cluster over here as well. But minus the flyer, you've got a group size of 1.86, which is a little better on the extreme spread minus the flyer than the Hornady. We have a mean radius of 0.53 versus 0.51 with Hornady. We have an average group size of 106 versus 102, and an area of 2.26 versus 2.20. So minus the flyer on each of these, they're shooting virtually identical. My vote, however, is going to be for the Hornady ELD match, because on the extreme spread, mean radius, average group size, and area, including the flyer, it was hands down better than the Berger boat tail by a good bit. As I mentioned during my shooting, I also have the Garmin chronograph, finally. Y'all have been asking me to get that, and so I did chronograph these on 20 shots each. So on the 73 grain ELD match, we had an average velocity of 2,466 feet per second on 20 shots, but we had a standard deviation of 24. With the Berger boat tail bullets, we had an average velocity of 2,485 feet per second, so a little faster on average with 20 shots. We had a 46.7 extreme spread, and we had a 15.5 standard deviation. So a little more consistent on the Berger bullets with regards to the extreme spread and standard deviations that we have here. So I hope you find this information helpful. If you have any ideas, thoughts, suggestions, questions, comments, please leave those below. I hope you will also like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.